It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Resilient people are flexible. They find pathways. They identify alternative options.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the founder of happyfamilies.com.au and the author of a bunch of books about making your family happier. I'm here with Kylie, Mrs. Happy Families. Holidays are over. The school's back. Are you tired or something after the school holidays? I mean,
I know you're saying that the school holidays are over.
Well, they are for Queenslanders.
But I don't actually feel like I've had a holiday.
Well, school holiday. The kids had the holiday, not you, not me.
Well, yeah, and we're in the middle of packing up house.
Oh, for those who have been following along since the start of the year, it's been the world's longest saga. We have some news.
Well, we sold a house.
And
we brought a house.
So finally, well, I mean, we're not there yet. We're still, this week we move out of our old house completely. You remain on the coast in another Airbnb, because how many times have we moved in the last 3 months? And over the next couple of weeks, we'll be in and out of a couple more Airbnbs. And finally, late May, we move into our very own new home near the coast. And I hope it'll all have been worth it, because it's been 5 months of moving saga.
Well, they say that a change is as good as a vacation. I'm a little bit nervous about this change, because we're going from a very large space into a very small space. We're having a complete sea change in every sense of the word.
So for anyone who's sort of been watching the housing market lately, you will know that coastal areas are kind of expensive. So we've been living in a really big house. The reality is we couldn't believe how much house you can buy in the southern suburbs of Brisbane. And so we're moving out of a 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. I mean, it's been a massive house to live in, into a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. We're literally half the size.
And we still have 5 at home.
And we've got 2 shipping containers full of stuff that we're going to have to...
And you're going to work from home as well.
And our school, that's right, the kids are actually going to all sleep in the rumpus room, because I need one of the bedrooms for an office, because I don't even have an office there.
So keep an ear out for I'll Do Better Tomorrows, because I am sure we're going to have some wowzers as the months go on.
Oh, man. And I guess to tidy up the end of this conversation, we have spent our school holidays packing up and cleaning up and tidying up.
And saying goodbye.
That's been really nice. That's true. So anyway, today, Kylie, we have a conversation that's important. Now that we filled everyone in on where we're up to, and I don't know how the podcast, by the way, is going to manage through the next few weeks, but we will make it happen. We're going to make it happen. But a really important conversation to kick off term 2.
You know, parents have had a really tough time over the last few years. You think about the pandemic and all of the things that have happened there.
Kids in ISO.
The vaccination dilemma and, not being able to get food.
Yeah. And cost of living lately,
it's huge.
Crazy expensive.
And then you think about, I guess some of the challenges that countries abroad are experiencing with war at the moment, and the tumultuous way that has affected us even here in Australia. It's had such a huge impact, and just our sense of well-being and peace has been affected.
Hello.
Oh gosh, don't talk about the floods.
Yeah.
And families all around the country and obviously throughout the world are experiencing these, and it seems like it's just, we can't kind of get a break.
Yeah. Yep. And so there's been calls. In fact, the Murdoch Children's Research Institute recently published a study where clinicians, psychologists, people who work in mental health fields are calling for resilience training in schools to help prevent mental health disorders, because we're seeing an increase in anxiety, we're seeing an increase in depression, we're seeing an increase in mental health issues and decreased resilience in our kids. So surely...
Well, I would suggest that it's across the board. We're not just talking about kids who are dealing with this. I would assume that adults are dealing with anxiety and depression
and
at an
stress.
Alarming rate.
Yeah, the world is speeding up.
Which has to impact our kids, right?
And our lives are more challenging. So, yeah, of course, it's affecting all of us. But when we're not well, it certainly affects them. And so people are saying, let's get resilience training happening in schools. And that's what we want to talk about today.
Well, I'm really curious. Is this actually a teacher's job? Should this stuff be taught in schools?
I want to answer that in a fairly sort of nuanced way. We've got research evidence that can guide our instruction here, that can guide our conversation. Your first question was, should teachers be responsible for teaching resilience in schools? So teachers already teach a number of R's. They teach writing, reading, and arithmetic. Should we add resilience to it? I don't actually think so. And there's a couple of reasons. Number one, teachers aren't trained to teach this stuff. Like well-being, psychology, mental health, these are not specifically things that teachers are trained to teach in, and they do require a certain level of expertise and expert knowledge. And I just think that that's asking, teachers already do so much, and so many things have been crammed into the curriculum. And that's probably not a very popular thing for me to be saying, because most people think that we do need to be teaching resilience at schools. I don't think that's the reality. I think it needs to be taught in the home. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that some of the world's best researchers have tried to get resilience programs running in schools. The very best known one was put together by a guy called Martin Seligman. He is the founder of the positive psychology movement over the last 20 years, which has swept the world by storm. And he put together a program called the Penn Resiliency Project, the PRP. We've got schools here in Australia like Knox Grammar in Sydney and Geelong Grammar obviously in Geelong, who have literally spent millions of dollars implementing well-being. And what the research seems to be indicating is that it doesn't really have a huge impact. It has a marginal effect. There are some children that have really benefited from it, but many that have not. And there's a number of reasons for it. When you try to teach it in a school, you've got to have the entire school culture embracing it and living it. The worry that it can veer into toxic positivity and everything's always got to be great, fine, wonderful, happy. And ultimately, the results just don't stand up. They can't get good longitudinal studies showing that teaching this stuff in schools is having a long-term impact on the well-being and the resilience of our kids. So I wish that I could say, yes, let's do it and here's a solution and let's roll this out, but it doesn't seem to actually work.
It's interesting when you talk about the things that teachers generally are trained to teach. Every time there seems to be a lack in our children's lives, it almost feels like teachers are the ones who get lumped with the responsibility of taking care of that, of filling that need.
Yeah, because it's a community-wide, it's a society-wide issue, and the best way to get information to the whole society is run it through the curriculum, because that's where everybody is. But it doesn't work. The research just isn't there to support it. There's been plenty of research done, and some research is positive. I'm not throwing the whole field out and saying this is a waste of time. What I'm suggesting is that overall, over time, we're not seeing the kind of improvements that would justify running this stuff through the school curriculum. And that's because resilience starts at home. After the break, we're going to talk about what we can do to build our kids' resilience. Your daughter just walked by, eyes glued to her phone, expression unreadable. You ask her to put it down, but she balks. You know it's not good for her, but you're not sure why or how to support better choices. In the webinar Pixel Perfect, I join with psychologist and teen tech expert Jocelyn Brewer to discuss how to set screen boundaries that work for you and your daughter. Check out Pixel Perfect now on the Happy Families webshop.
It's the Happy Families podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. Resilience. It's a catchphrase. We talk about it all the time. And this study has obviously reignited the conversation around whether or not resilience should actually be taught in schools. You're suggesting no. So if that's the case, how do we as parents who are tired, we're tired.
You're saying we're not resilient ourselves. Is that what you're saying?
No, but I am saying that the last few years has thrown some major curveballs, and for parents who are just getting through day to day, the last few years have really, really affected our capacity.
Tiring. Yeah, absolutely.
And so how do we teach resilience to our kids?
So I'm going to share 3 ideas here that I think will be helpful. And we're going to do it in about 4 minutes. So we've got to move fairly quickly because time's going to run against us. The first one, and I was thinking about this the other day when I was on my bicycle. I was thinking about people who are resilient. So you can be resilient and still have something horrible happen to you, and you end up laying underneath the blankets and eating ice cream and watching Netflix and crying because sometimes life is really hard. Resilient people still feel all of the same emotions. We don't have to impose this, like I said before, toxic positivity on people so that they feel like they can be resilient. You should be allowed to have the full range of emotions. But resilient people are flexible. They find pathways. They identify alternative options. So when something happens that's not good, when something happens that hammers them into the ground, when something happens that's unexpected, random, volatile, difficult to deal with, what they do is they find a way forward, or they find a different way forward.
So I had a conversation with one of our daughters just the other day in relation to moving. She's been so supportive of our move and has been really, really excited about it. And there is so much about our new life on the coast that she loves. But being back in Brisbane and spending time with her friends has left her really, really sad. And she's trying really, she tried really hard through the holidays to put a big brave face on. And one day she was really cranky. I was like, what is going on? And I sat down with her and she just burst into tears. She said, I don't want to move. I miss my friends. And so we were able to talk about that and talk about the fact that I would love for her to have grown up in the same family home her whole life and to have had the same friends her whole life. And yet I feel like our lives are richer because of all of the experiences we've had and all of the different people that have come into our lives as a result of our moves. But I also acknowledged to her that it was okay for her to be sad. And she could be sad for as long as she needed to be, and she could cry and she could come and get a hug from me whenever she needed it to. But as soon as it went from being sad to wallowing in it, that in and of itself would be detrimental to her. That feeling sad and acknowledging that sadness was okay, but that then she needed to take opportunities. It's not about being that toxic positivity that you're talking about, but acknowledging the things that are good in her life, finding opportunities to be grateful for the beautiful friendships she has and the opportunity she has to continue those relationships in spite of the fact that she's not in them. And what are some of the things that she loves about her new life?
Yeah. Adolescent girls in particular are really prone to rumination, which is exactly the opposite of finding pathways forward. I love the word that you use. It's wallowing. It's sitting there and saying, woe is me. This isn't working. I'm unhappy. And instead of finding pathways or options, a different way forward, they don't. They just sit there and stagnate. That's the very essence of a non-resilient response. So by talking with our children about being fine, to be unhappy, to even grieve, but then saying, what pathways do we have to get to where we want to go now? That is a resilience building conversation. The second idea that I wanted to share was just the idea of being flexible, which kind of, it's aligned with what we're talking about here, but flexibility is a bit more than that. It's essentially saying, I'm in a situation that's not ideal, a situation that's bringing me down. How can I adapt to this particular situation so that I can feel okay about being here, or so that I can respond to it in an effective way, even though I'm not okay being here, because I am here regardless. So again, it's not about toxic positivity and smile your frowns away and let's make everything, turn that frown upside down kind of thing, but rather being flexible in the way we respond to a situation that we find challenging.
So can you give us an example of what it means to be flexible?
Yeah, I wrote about this in my book, 9 Ways to a Resilient Child, and this story really strikes me as being a good one. There's a boy, his name is Noah. He's about, I think he's in like grade 10, grade 11, and he's at a school sports carnival day, and they're doing, do you remember those games like Tunnel Ball and Captain Ball? So they've got a full age range from grade 7 through to grade 12 playing this game, and they're doing Tunnel Ball. And one of the grade 7 kids completely fumbles the ball, loses the ball. It goes off completely the wrong way, and they're going to lose about 10 or 12 seconds while the grade 7 boy runs to pick up the ball that he's fumbled and throw it back so that it can be done again. And as this happens, a grade 9 boy starts to rip into this kid. Oh, man, I can't believe you just did that. You're so clumsy, calling him names while he's chasing after the ball. But this grade 11 boy, Noah, or grade 10 boy, whatever he was, he calls out to this grade 9 boy and says, hey, it's just a game. It's not going to change the world whether we win or lose. Just be nice. He's only in grade 7. And so what's happened here is Noah wants to win just like every other boy in that competition, but he knows what his values are. He knows what matters most. He's got his priorities in order, and he's able to be flexible around his end goal based on what's happening in context. He knows that it's more important to be kind. That value matters more than the value of winning. And so when the year 9 boy starts yelling at the year 7 boy, Noah steps in and says, hey, you know what? In terms of priority, being kind matters much more than winning. Don't give the kid a hard time. Let's just work together as a team from here. We'll do the best we can. That's what it is to be flexible. You've got a goal, but even if you're not going to hit your goal, you remember what your values are and you change your goal based on your values and based on the circumstances. Now, that's a really resilient mindset.
So in a parental context, as parents, we want obedience.
Right.
We want our kids to do what we've asked them to do.
A lot of parents do, yeah.
But at the end of the day, what we want more, or I hope we want more, is to have a good, solid, strong relationship with our kids. And sometimes that means letting go of that obedience model to have the relationship.
That's a really nice idea. Yeah, that works really, really well. So the third idea to build our kids' resilience, and we'll have to do this one fairly quickly because we're kind of out of time, is just giving them something to hope for. Like building hope as parents, and you've heard me say this before, we are hope builders. We cannot expect teachers to be responsible for helping kids to discover new pathways to everything in life, be flexible, and have something to hope for. As parents, this is our job. This is how we build our kids' resilience. What are your kids hoping for? What are they looking forward to? How are they going to get there? How can they be flexible in their approaches? How can they adapt or change their goals based on their values as things do or don't measure up? If they can do these sorts of things, they're going to be resilient and they're going to be just fine. Like if we go back, Kylie, to the initial list of challenges and difficulties that the world is facing and that families are facing, that our children are facing, that we're facing, the one thing that stands out to me more than anything is that adversity doesn't discriminate. We all have hard times. But if we can have options and teach our kids that there are always options, there's always another way forward. They can be flexible. Maybe what they're moving towards actually isn't what they need to, but perhaps there's a different goal. And if we can help them to build hope, they're going to be resilient.
I love it.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you like what we had to talk about, I ran a webinar last night that you might really love. It's called The Toolbox for Tremendously Tough and Terrible Times, or something like that. It's in the Happy Families web shop right now, and I reckon you might really enjoy it. There's a list of 10 things that you can do to keep your cool when times are tough, and a list of 10 things that you can do to help your kids keep their cool when times are tough. It's a really great webinar. We had a great conversation about it last night, and it might just help if resilience is on the wane in your home. Please check it out at the Happy Families web shop. You can find all the info at happyfamilies.com.au.